I remember coming up to two guys who had just finished a 100-kilometer race to raise money for their foundation. And I remember saying to them, guys, I think we should swim from Phuket to Phi Phi. I remember both of them just looking at me and being like, you're insane, or you've had too much to drink. And I said, no, I'm serious. I think this should be the next thing. And, that's kind of what led to today. I don't think there's anyone that's ever gone directly from Phuket to Phi Phi. I don't think it's necessarily that impressive that we are swimming to Phi Phi. I think it's more of we're not swimmers and swimming to Phi Phi. That was the main reason I chose to swim when the boys asked me, hey, why do you want to swim? And it scared me. The idea of swimming 50 plus kilometers or however long it will take put fear into me, which I hadn't felt in a long time. And that in itself was pretty exciting.
Welcome to the Fruiting Body Podcast with your host, Brendan. Today we have an absolute legend making his first appearance on this podcast. It is going to be absolutely insane. You guys are going to have to hold in your seats for this one. It is Noah Teplitzky. We're going to be talking about how he grew up in Thailand, traveling the world, really getting involved in professional soccer at a certain level, from Costa Rica to the UK and being in Thailand as well. But that is not what you're here for. This is about Noah swimming from Koh Phi Phi to Phuket. Absolutely insane, but for a great cause. So we're going to really be explaining why he's doing it, maybe how you guys can get involved in as well, and when that's going to be happening. Again, Fruiting Body, we are a medicinal mushroom company on the island of Phuket. We're doing lion's mane, cordyceps, reishi, all that good stuff for you guys. So without further ado, Noah Teplitzky. Here we go. I wasn't natural on the last name. That's where my brain started snapping.
No worries. Yeah. No, it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm happy to be on the podcast and explain a little bit about myself and the swim and the people I'm doing it with, the cause and whatnot. So
yeah,
thank you for having me.
We're all chatting. We were chatting a bit before about this extremist side of yourself. So we're going to get all into that. I think before we even jump off, we can probably mention we had one of your friends on before, Andrew Lyko as well. That's when we first met. I don't even know when that's got to be maybe 2 years ago.
Yeah, it was
maybe
a while ago
2
now.
years ago. I think he's got to be back in US now.
Yeah, I think he went to Mexico for a bit and is in the States. I think being an artist, you're constantly traveling to new countries, getting inspired by new areas. So pretty sure he's in the States at the moment.
Yeah, interesting. Let's just jump right into it. Your first initial backstory, you're telling me you grew up in Bangkok until about the age of 11. Can you build us up that backstory of what was it like living there? You're going to international schools, and after 11, what happened?
So, born in the States, moved to Thailand when I was 7 or 8, and until 11, I lived in Bangkok. I went to International School of Bangkok. At that time, I had started playing football somewhat competitively, and as I got older and older, it became more competitive. I remember I had a player on my team who had a trial with Fulham, and I remember one day the coach coming up to me and basically, asking, how did it make you feel seeing this guy go abroad? And at that point, I wasn't super competitive, and I just said, I'm happy for him. I think it's a cool opportunity. And then the coach said, well, doesn't that make you want to do something bigger? Doesn't that make you want to go over there? And I think that was the turning point for when I really thought, maybe this is what I want to do. And fast forward, I ended up moving to England a little after 11, I think just before I turned 12 years old, and spent the majority of my youth in England.
Were you at a boarding school there as well, or just right with the clubs?
So when I was my youngest, when I was over there at 12, I lived with a host family that was actually the parents of my coach in Thailand. So when you're that young, often the club doesn't really supply you a family yet. And then as I got older and played for different clubs, I lived with different host families that were normally connected to the club I was playing with.
And still going to school as well in the UK?
Yeah, so I went to different schools, and then I stopped going to school when I was about, I want to say, 16. I mean, there was, to be honest, my schooling growing up was definitely unconventional. I remember being 14 or 15 at the time. I think I was with Stoke City, and I would leave every Thursday up to Stoke and train 2 days there. So I was only going to school 3, maybe max 4 days a week. And then I stopped going to school entirely when I was 16, and then later had to obviously catch up on a lot of missed schooling in order to get my degree, my high school degree.
Do you think that affected you in any which way? I mean, Elon Musk comes out and says he doesn't even care if you've went to high school. At the end of the day, people have to have IQ and EQ as well, and this is essential. Are you a hard worker? I mean, can you understand problems? Can you solve these problems? Do you believe, and obviously, this is coming from your word, not kind of going through that conventional school system, was this positive or negative?
I think there's positives and negatives to everything. In this situation, would I have possibly been a slightly more intellectual or smarter individual if I had proper schooling? Possibly. Would that change the trajectory and path of who I am now in a better way? Hard to say. I don't know. I think because I went through that unconventional path, I developed a lot of skills in other ways. Maybe I don't know the most about mathematics, but I know how to get around in life, and I know how to deal with people, and I'm pretty good with connecting with certain types of individuals that I otherwise maybe not have been able to do so as well. So in a nutshell, I don't think it really matters. I think it's more effort and having the drive to kind of do what you want to do. Especially with the internet now, you can learn whatever you want to learn.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you need math today with ChatGPT. I don't remember the last time I've looked up an algebra equation in my life or a calculus, so I don't think it's very relevant.
Yeah, the only thing that makes me nervous sometimes is thinking about one day when I have a kid and they come to me with the math problem, and I'm like, listen, I could teach you how to kick a ball, but I'm not sure I could help with this.
ChatGPT, just pull it up on your phone. I mean, to be honest, even for myself, at the end of the day, you're using calculators, I'm using Excel, I'm using ChatGPT. Half the time whatever the data is, I just ask it the question. It pops it out faster than anything. So
fair. Yeah, my mom, she called me up, I think, 2 days ago and said, hey, your spelling and grammar really isn't that great. I suggest before you post anything, you put it in ChatGPT and have it correct everything for you. I was like, that's probably a good idea.
No, I've been doing the same. The problem now with ChatGPT is my typing is a mess because it's so good that it knows when you just mess up all the typing. So now I can't type naturally anymore because I'll just start going, and I know every word's wrong.
Yeah.
But when you throw it in there, it just comes out perfect. So I wonder in the future, is this going to affect our typing ability? Because right now mine is, if you ask me to just type a sentence, half the time I'm correcting it. So it doesn't work so well on your online WhatsApps and WeChats.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, my typing and texting is terrible, to be honest.
That's okay. But now you had that experience of being able to travel. You said you were playing at a high level in Costa Rica. I mean, that's a major impact on your life in terms of developing the person who you are today and giving you that insight of being able to absorb other cultures, which, to be honest, coming from Canada, most people that I grew up with don't even hold a passport. So they really only learn from within their own communities. When you are learning and living in these places like Costa Rica, I mean, I'm assuming as well you're crossing paths with many cultures, probably Dutch and German and Australian. It's not just going to be the Costa Rican. How has that developed you to the person you are today? Really, expanding your understanding of other cultures way outside of where you were born.
I think it gave me probably my greatest asset, which is the ability to see different perspectives and relate to different individuals. I find myself tremendously lucky that as I grew up, I spent time with an extreme range of individuals from various places across the globe. In every team I played in, there was people from, Brazil or Germany or England. And obviously when I was older and playing at an adult standard in Costa Rica, you had people from all over South America, Central America, myself, North America. Yeah, I think what it did is it kind of opened my eyes. It made me not judge people really at all, because I kind of saw different backgrounds. I saw what people were dealing with, how different cultures interacted with each other. It made me, I would say, a much better person at understanding what someone might be going through or how they're approaching certain situations.
Yeah, and especially the different cultures, let's say like a German or an Italian. If you're playing football with an Italian and you maybe want him to do something different, you can't just be direct.
Yeah.
Like there's certain cultures get very stuck in their ways, and there's certain ways to approach that. Even in Thailand, or I was living in China, saving face, and how do you talk to them, and how do you approach them? Instead of kind of the Western world, we're just very direct. Like, you've done this wrong, do it this way, and it does not work in other cultures.
Yeah, I think it's super dependent on the individual. The culture definitely plays a part, but different people are motivated and reasoned with differently. So I have lots of stories of coaches talking to certain players in certain ways, myself talking to certain players in certain ways. The beautiful thing is when you're on the field, everyone speaks the same language, but off the field, there can be clashes. I remember getting in fights with players over little things that I didn't think mattered, to them mattered. Hearing coaches scream at other people to get results and be really kind to other players to build up their confidence to get results. It was really dependent on how the player grew up, I think, and what they went through before they got to the club.
Living all over the world, especially at a young age, basically, these countries, these communities, they were essentially your parents in a sense. Like, being away from home at such a long period of time, it's still turning you into the person that you are today. Is there anything on that side like that you would have done different, or is this something that you still cherish today to making it the person you are?
That's a good question. I think about that a decent amount, to be honest. I don't think I would change anything, first and foremost. I think it definitely made me who I am. Are there certain aspects of it that were extremely difficult in the time? Absolutely. Certain families that I lived with weren't I don't want to say best, but I don't think they were the most suited to looking after young adults or kids at the time. I think it was more looking for the financial aspect from the club. But what that did also is it gave me the opportunity to interact with opportunity to interact with a lot of different types of people. And so as I got older, I had a lot more patience than probably most, because I've dealt with certain families that were, very strict, or certain families that kind of made me try and figure it out for myself. And maybe some were always super nice, some were sometimes not so nice, and you just kind of had to deal with it. So did it make me who I am? Absolutely. Would I change anything? I don't think so. Was it the easiest path? Absolutely not.
Yeah, a lot of the hockey clubs in Canada, they'll bring players from Europe over, and they'll come stay with the family. But one of the incentives of the family is they're kind of being paid financially, so they want to take it on because maybe that's a couple extra $100 in their pocket for the month, and they can balance that out. Do you have like an example of a specific family, without giving details and names, when you kind of arrived, you're like, you guys are just in this for the financial gain here?
Yeah, I won't go into details. But I can give examples of, the first family I lived with, some of the best people I've ever met in my life. I kind of knew every night what was being had for dinner, right? It was like on a 6-day rotation or something, and Sunday was like up in the air. Whereas fast forward to like another family, I remember going out and having to buy a Jamie Oliver cookbook and learning how to cook, because they weren't really up to the standard of even, cooking or wanting to supply food that was necessary to perform well. A lot of like, if it was up to them, it's a lot of, fish and chips and food that really wasn't that healthy, and I kind of had to just figure it out.
This whole extremist side, you're at a young age, you're living this extreme life as well. For a young child to be able to jump around the world and live with different families, where do you really believe this part of you, the extremist part of you, where do you think this came from?
Being as transparent as possible, I think, and it's gotten a lot more evident as I've become an adult. I always dealt with a pretty high amount of anxiety. And I used to cope a lot with the anxiety by putting myself through pretty extreme endeavors as far as fitness. I have really early memories of being extremely frustrated or upset and not really knowing how to cope with the anxiety or the emotion, and putting on my running shoes and running basically until I was so far that I would have to get a bus home, right? I would just run until I stopped feeling that type of anxiety. And I think looking back, that's what really stemmed me starting to do a lot of the extreme endeavors in fitness, because it was my way of, putting the anxiety at bay or learning how to cope better with my emotions and really living a happier life.
Anxiety in the sense of looking forward to the future. I mean,
Yeah.
to reframe that a bit, like living in this Thailand and a Buddhist culture, I'm not sure as many Thais deal with anxiety because they live such in the present, which is
it's a phenomenal quality.
For us, it's difficult. From the Western world, that's not how we're raised. We're raised to, you got to go to school. Now from next, you got to work to get to university, then a job. So we're always looking to the future from our society. But in Thailand, it's much different. For yourself, what was driving your anxiety? Was it thoughts of the future? Was it something else?
Yeah, often thinking too much about the future. It would be, examples would be of, like, let's say going somewhere I didn't want to go because people were there I didn't want to see, and you start to create these false scenarios in your head of what could happen, which in the end, 99% of the time, it's nothing like you think it's going to play out, and it ends up perfectly fine. But if you get in your head a little too often, it can really, push you the wrong way. I was always very, very hard on myself, and I don't know, I felt like at any time it could be stripped away, and that was, making me worry about tomorrow and next week. And
so the fear aspect.
Yeah, it was a little bit of fear, and just certain things if something really didn't go well, or maybe I had a disagreement with the family, or I had a really bad game, and then I'm starting to think, oh, maybe the club's going to release me and they don't want me. And it's just, if you let it sit there and fester in your head, it can just really take down your confidence, which is a major role in sports. And at the time, even now, I'm not a very good communicator, so I wouldn't text much or talk much with my family. So the result was, okay, I'm just gonna, it was a lot of running. I remember running a lot. I remember being upset and just going out and running.
So it's snowballing, building up, and then you're releasing it through energy.
Yeah. I mean, I remember there's been times, you're crying out of frustration and you just run till you feel better. It could be hours. It just depended on the day.
From that, running has led to extreme ways of releasing that energy, which we'll get into up and coming with your swim from Phi Phi to Phuket. But you've done other types of charity events and helping a familiar face on the island here, Tom, as well,
Sure.
And doing burpees all the way up to the top of the Big Buddha. What was your first extreme challenge? Can you really go into detail? How did that come about? How did you decide, like, I'm going to go down this path? This is leveling up from just running.
So there's a lot of key components that I could mention. I'm going to try and find maybe the top 2 or 3 that I remember. Okay, this is the turning point when I'm going to take things up a notch a little bit. I had started training in CrossFit when I was playing in Spain. After Costa Rica, I went to play in Spain. And I was training CrossFit to make my football better, to become a better athlete. And then I remember the head coach coming to me, and he basically said, hey, if you wanted to do this as a career, I think you could. Like, you have this little bit of insanity about you that I feel like you could become a very high-level CrossFitter if you really wanted to. And I think that was the turning point in my head where I thought, this kind of skill set that I've acquired of really liking to push myself, I could actually put it to use. Because the thing is with football is, and it's an unfortunate aspect, but you could give 100%, 110%, you could outwork everyone, and if you aren't really up to the standard quality-wise, it's not going to make a huge difference. It'll make a big difference, and you can make a career out of it, no doubt, but you might never play at the top level. When it came to football, when we had preseason fitness events, everyone hated it. I loved it. I was like, oh, man, this is my time to really show you, like, I can suffer more than you can. So with CrossFit, it was purely, in my head at the time, it was purely about, who can suffer the most? Oh, this is fantastic. And I remember the first time that I really probably pushed myself over that edge. I'd only been doing CrossFit not too long, and they pulled me aside and said, hey, there's a Reebok event we want you to do. There's a really established CrossFit athlete in Spain, and I want you guys to go head-to-head in this like Reebok premiere event. We're going to film it. It's going to be a great event. And I didn't really know what I was getting into. but I had said to myself, okay, you know what? I'm a big fan of Steve Prefontaine, who set the mile in running a long time ago, but his philosophy was always, make it about guts, don't make it about talent. Start out really fast, and then make it just who can hold on and who can really suffer. And I had the main mindset going in with that was, let me start out ridiculously fast, let him try and keep up, and then let's make it about, like, once we're both really, really dying, who can hold on. And I remember finishing the event, and I'd never felt a level of exhaustion. I laid on the floor probably for an hour. I had to do a post-event interview. I just could barely talk. And I remember looking at my watch, and in an hour I had to go to football training, right? So I left the event, and I went to football, and I remember just barely being able to stand. And that's probably the first super extreme time in my life where I thought, oh, man, this is a new level of exhaustion.
How did it make you feel after, though? Like, this sense of relief?
Yeah, it made me... It was a feeling of understanding that the mind was just limitless, which I enjoyed. It was a feeling of, I ended up winning the event. But it was funny because both our times really weren't that great. But I had put him into a place of such uncomfort that he kind of completely ditched his strategy, whereas I didn't have a strategy. I remember, I won't go into the event too much, but we had burpees over a box, and we had some dumbbell movements. And I remember on each side of the box, I had written my brothers and sisters' names on the floor. And so I remember being in, like, a lot of pain and seeing the names and being like, okay, like, it's not just you. Like, you can go further than this. And I think it kind of, it showed me, you can dig deeper than most if you really want to.
You're not reaching that, like, level of exhaustion where, your hands are ripped apart, like the feet are absolutely killing you. Like, what is that feeling you're actually going through?
So, I mean, there's many different events in my life where I had one talking about hands ripped where I had to go to the hospital and my hands were so messed up the next day. They were like 3 times the size, completely ripped. And my coach sent me straight to the hospital. And it's funny because on the report where they were explaining why my hands were so ripped, they wrote down the workout that I had to do, which was another Reebok event. But that specific event, it wasn't in terms of, oh, my hands are so sore or ripped or my feet are ripped. It was a feeling of you can't breathe, you can't feel your legs, everything is numb, everything in your body is screaming to stop, but you just keep moving, yeah.
And as you progress these extremist challenges, did they just get more challenging? Were you always trying to push the bar?
To a certain degree. I eventually traveled around Europe a little bit and competed at a pretty high level of CrossFit. And I would say the fitter you got, it never got easier because you continued to push yourself to a certain standard. I mean, I have few memories of, like, really, really hurting. But you almost want to keep pushing it, and you start to also gain a deeper understanding of the more I push it, the more I get comfortable with feeling like this, especially when it came to CrossFit, the better I'll do when I compete, because everyone's going to go in and have a decent level of technique and move pretty efficiently, and it's going to get to a certain point where you're hurting, I'm hurting. Whoever can hurt more is most likely going to do better.
Even at the professional level, were you bringing strategy in at a certain point, or were you just like, I'm just going to push until let's see how far you guys can go as well?
So with CrossFit, yes. With football, when we had, like, preseason, for example, there was never any strategy. Like, we used to do events where you'd have to, like, run sets of 400 meters and you'd come back and then everyone would check their pulse, and when one person's pulse was back in the range, we'd go again. And with things like that, I remember just thinking, just win everyone. Like, there's no strategy. I want to win to the point where the person who comes second feels so defeated, like he can't even compete. When it came to CrossFit, it was a lot more strategic. I had a coach who used my strengths to my advantage, and we'd go through certain things I was better at. At the end of the day, there's so many movements and modalities in CrossFit that I could be really fit and I could suffer a lot, but maybe you're a really good gymnast. I'm not as good of a gymnast. I'm not going to go as hard in the gymnastics portion, but then when it gets to the weightlifting, I'm going to really send it. So yeah, there was always a little bit of strategy. The further up you went, strategy played a bigger and bigger role, but it definitely didn't outweigh the aspect of who could really endure.
As you came up to these events, I mean, I'm assuming you could have a couple months of preparation.
Oh, I mean, the last event I did was the biggest one I did, and it was a very big event in Europe with some of the best athletes in the world. I think I prepped probably 5 months in total, and it's built in stages, right? But that was the real breakthrough of figuring out, hey, the more often I can really, really make it hurt, the more often, I used to have this this saying written in my phone I'd look at all the time, and it was something along the lines of, I want to work so hard that other people feel sick watching me train. And that always stuck in my head because I had that realization of, oh man, if I can train at a level that was super grueling, I would often I'd turn off all the lights in the gym, I'd have no music, I'd be rowing in the dark, I'd stay really late. It was, I really wanted to push it. So then when competition time came, you were so used to that feeling that it almost felt easier. My most horrible memories, probably in CrossFit, I had a coach. He didn't train with me often, but I remember he came up with me one weekend, and we did like a competition simulation for 2 weeks later. So you practice basically the amount of events in a day. And I remember physically crying like while we were doing the workout. And I remember him later being like, or maybe this is my other coach telling me, if you're not crying, you can go faster.
Let's jump into, we're going to get into the swim from Koh Phi Phi to Phuket. But first, one of your first charities was for a well-known mutual friend of the island, Tom. And that's got to be it's got to be getting close to a year ago? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, can you just let us know, and we talked about this before, but the build up to that, how that all came together, and a little bit of the backstory, who is Tom, and really why you decided to do burpees from the bottom of Big Buddha. And I actually think it was much further than that, all the way to the top. And just push the mic in a little bit there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think the backstory would be in regards to deciding to help. I think the conclusion I had made way before the event with Tom was, as I got older and I saw people helping people all the time. My parents, they help run an orphanage. I see people doing great things, and I definitely want to do my part. And I think as a person, it's your job to kind of figure out your passion as you grow up, and then hopefully develop that passion into a certain skill set that could one day be used in a way to help people other than yourself. Hopefully do some kind of justice for either your community or even the world in a positive way. And so I remember making the transition from playing professional sports to coaching and doing other things, and I had felt like most of my life was very selfish and it was all about me. And I felt like this is my chance to help people on their journey and use the skills I've acquired. And I remember meeting Tom a few years ago. He had certain qualities I really admired. He was the first person to tell you what he thought. He was extremely passionate about what he did, and he was a tremendously hard worker, which were all things that I thought very highly of. And I remember speaking with a friend who was very, very close to him. And while me and Tom were close, we weren't best friends by any means. And they explained to me the situation. I remember texting Tom and saying, hey, obviously you're not feeling great, so I'm not going to ask you how you are, but how is everything going in terms of the solution? And he explained to me that it was a very expensive process with all the chemo, and he was a little bit nervous about paying for it. And then I kind of went away, and I don't know, I just felt like, let's see what you can do. I knew I didn't have the funds, or at least enough of my own, to make a profitable difference, at least in helping pay for the chemo. So I thought, man, maybe this is an opportunity to take, those skills that you've acquired and really put them to making a difference in something much bigger than yourself. And the idea for the burpees, I basically was thinking, what's crazy enough that it'll get people's attention. And I remember talking to a few people after I'd come up with the idea, and they just told me I was insane. And I knew, oh, okay, this is a good idea. And I also knew, not in a way of ego, but I knew I could do it. I knew if it's something where you just go till you have to complete it, I was never worried for a second I couldn't finish it. And I knew, whatever pain you endure, Tom's obviously enduring more. So yeah, we came up with the burpees, and we tried to raise as much money as we could for him.
How does that process work in Thailand when you're raising money? Do you need to be going through certain organizations? I mean, and now obviously you're doing that on your next challenge as well. So you probably have a pretty good understanding of, and you could share that information for other people out there that would maybe like to partake in do their own charities. What are some of the steps you have to go through?
So when it came to Tom's, it was extremely spontaneous, and there wasn't so many steps involved because I didn't really have that much time. I knew his chemo had to be paid very quickly, and so it was pretty much, hey, this is what I'm going to do. I made one Instagram post about it. People believed in the cause. They reshared it. I explained that you tell me how much you're going to pledge. I had them all write my Instagram, which fortunately my assistant kind of took care of because it was a lot of moving pieces. And then I had people pledge, and then when the time came, when I finished the event, I sent them Tom's QR code, and they sent it actually directly to him. So there wasn't too many steps in that regard, whereas this year, since it's a much bigger project, and I'm with Grip It, there's many moving pieces, and they're much more official, and so there's a lot more steps that need to take part. Yeah,
to make sure that that is legal, and I think, like most charities in the world, they're set up registered properly.
Yeah.
Well.
This is the case with.
Yeah. How at the end of the day, when you're going up Big Buddha and you're doing burpees, how much did you end up doing? How long did that take?
Oh, it's been a while. I know we did at least 3,500, maybe more, because I remember certain pledges telling me I'm only going to donate past the 3,000 mark or past like a certain mark. It was more money, but they also wanted me to really make sure that I put in enough and tried to raise enough. And granted, the money that they might have said something to me along the lines of, and I think this is what actually happened. Sorry, they said, I'm going to donate, but after 3,000, it's going to be more each burpee. Yeah. So they gave me incentive. It wasn't that they weren't donating. Yeah. They just gave me incentive to do more. And I basically finished the actual hill much quicker than I anticipated. And then I set up a mat, and I just went until they kicked me out. So I believe we started at 5 a.m. They kicked me out around 6 or 7 p.m., something like that.
So almost 14 hours. Didn't you have other people with you as well?
Yeah, it was a fantastic community that came together, and I think that's one of the, biggest aspects, or I found rewarding, of the whole journey, especially for Tom, just seeing how many people came together and really wanted to support him. But I mean, throughout the day, I think I had up to 20 people actually doing the burpees with me. Obviously no one went the full distance because they didn't really have to, but there was a few people that went all the way to the top with me. There was a few people that would go for 2 hours, then go off to work, then come back and go for 2 hours. I was fortunate enough at the time that I had done some work, or just not only work, I had just been around Phuket a decent amount of time and met people and helped them with their fitness journey. And so they not only wanted to support the cause, but they wanted to support what I was doing, which I was really grateful for.
Was there a planned process for that? I mean, are you doing a burpee, resting a minute, doing one, or what steps were you taking?
The training was almost non-existent, to be honest. I think I might have done a couple hundred burpees in the lead up. I had made plans to do 1,000 with people, and I had made plans to, but in the end, I had told myself, you've done tens of thousands of burpees in your lifetime, especially with CrossFit. I mean, you do them. It's a ridiculous amount. And I've been doing burpees since I was 13 years old. So I knew, how to do a burpee. When I went there, the only thing I had told myself was, you're going to go until they kick you out. I spoke briefly with the crew, 5 a.m., and I basically said, look, it doesn't matter how fast you do it. It doesn't matter even if you complete it. There's going to be a point when you're really hurting for sure. There's going to be a point when you want to quit. But, keep in mind that Tom doesn't have that option, right? He can't just say, hey, I'm done, I want to quit. And hopefully that should give you, a little more strength to do a few more burpees. And that was the mindset. The mindset, the idea of not completing it didn't even enter my head. The idea of making a strategy didn't even enter my head. The mindset was, I'm going to start. I'm going to go until I make enough money that I think will help Tom.
And from that, we moved almost has it been a year since then?
Mm-hmm.
So how much longer after that did it come across where you said, okay, my next challenge, I'm going to be swimming from Koh Phi Phi to Phuket?
So I remember meeting with Tom a few weeks before he passed. We spoke about a lot of things, and he kind of mentioned a bucket list of things he wanted to do, and we spoke about a little bit of what he was proud of. And I guess what I learned the most from that conversation is, like, do things that make you feel most alive. I think it's rooted in me that, helping people is what makes me feel most alive. And I've developed a certain skill, I feel like, of enduring. So I had made the conclusion, post Tom's funeral for a few weeks. This is your way of putting the skills that you've acquired in your lifetime to make a real difference. And I think it'd be a great idea to do, something every year where you can potentially, help others in a way that maybe not only you alone, like I don't have enough money alone to do that, but maybe if I can put my skills together, we can get a bigger group to come in and make a real difference. And the swim, I think I had made the final decisions for it last December. So around a year ago, I was at a music festival, and the boys in Grip It were also there, and I'll go into Grip It a little bit more in a bit. But I remember coming up to two guys who had just finished a 100-kilometer race to raise money for their foundation, Grip It, Rob and Zane. And I remember saying to them, guys, I've been thinking, and I think we should swim from Phuket to Phi Phi. And I remember both of them just looking at me and being like, you're insane, or you've had too much to drink, or there's many factors at play. And I said, no, I'm serious. I think this should be the next thing. And, that's kind of what led to today.
Has anyone ever done it?
I don't know. I know there's been really big swims as far as people. There was a guy who swam around Phuket, which definitely is a greater distance. I don't think there's anyone that's ever gone directly from Phuket to Phi Phi. But I'm sure there's plenty of people that have the ability to.
Have you got in touch with the guy that did the swim around the island?
I personally didn't, but Rob, who co-founded Grip It, he got in touch with him, and they kind of shared notes and gave us a little bit of insight on what to expect. But yeah, I don't think it's necessarily that impressive that we are swimming to Phi Phi. I think it's more of we're not swimmers and swimming to Phi Phi. That was the main reason I chose to swim. When the boys asked me, hey, why do you want to swim? I said, I'm a terrible swimmer. I remember prepping for a CrossFit competition where there was a swimming event, and I remember swimming, and I couldn't go longer than 100 meters without dying. When I first started the prep 6 months ago, it was the same. Like, I genuinely was really poor in the water. Zero efficiency, zero technique. And it scared me. The idea of swimming 50 plus kilometers or however long it will take put fear into me, which I hadn't felt in a long time. And that in itself was pretty exciting.
Plus, you're holding a lot of lean muscle. I mean, this does not make things...
And
it's bulkier muscle. You're not talking like... an ultra marathon type of body here.
No, in CrossFit I was relatively lean, but as I've gotten older, I kind of ventured into a lot of different realms of fitness, and I spent a lot of years doing competitive Olympic lifting, and that transitioned to trying to be competitive in powerlifting for a little bit. Not at like a competition standard, but just me against me. And so, yeah, I've put on some weight over the years, and I'm definitely not built like a swimmer, that's for sure. Even the other boys always tell me, like, man, that's a lot of oxygen you got to supply to your body. Yeah, and I thought, yeah, but it makes it more exciting,
These guys, when you're putting it together, Grip It, it's a registered charity. They're doing a lot of stuff on the island. They helped out during COVID, as we were discussing, and also helping with, it could be a flash flood. There's issues in Kamala as well. They come together. Can you talk a little bit about them and what is their community and cause?
So Grip It started during COVID, and sorry if I look down, I have a little bit of notes here.
Worries.
Started during COVID, and they basically, a group of expats in Rawai that, wanted to make a difference. And I think they saw families that were being fed or possibly needed to be fed, and then they started sending a lot of food to homes that needed it. Fast forward a year, later, and they're sending care packages to 40 plus orphanages across Thailand. 2 years later, they're a registered Thai foundation. And I mean, they're making a tremendous difference. They're people I really admire. You know, Rob, co-founder, Zane, part of Grip It. I would consider myself somewhat of an ambassador for Grip It. We all have the same values, you know, and that's take your given skills and what you've acquired in life and really put it forward to try and make a difference. I mean, I would say they're probably split into 3 key areas, and one would be like emergencies, reacting to certain situations like landslide in Kata, sustainable support, supplying clean drinking water, filters, blood drives, clothing drives.
And this is their 100%, like their focus, or they're also, they have a day job as well, or
it's a mixture. I mean, a lot of them are working, but yeah, a lot of their focus does go to Grip It and really trying to make a difference in the community, you know, and they're also doing, you know, crazy type endurance events per year to help raise money. I mean, they're one of the few people I've met in my life where it's not talk, it's action. And that I think is what drew me towards them.
And you're putting this swim will be obviously promoted through them. If people are out there and they want to reach out, they want to donate. Has this begun? Has this this message where people are able to donate, to get involved, have you spread that out there yet?
To a certain degree, not nearly as much as we will. They're finalizing the website where people can donate to a certain bank, or, you know, give different types of donations. And I think that's up within the next few days, and they'll really be pushing it. And then once the website is up, I'll also be pushing it. So it makes the donation really a lot easier, because right now, if I really start to push it, people write me, hey, where can I donate? I don't really have an option for them. So within the next few days, we'll really start to push it. We did some filming over the weekend. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, Grip It played easily the most crucial role in the project, and that was making it happen. You know, I'm an idea man. I knew that I wanted to do something difficult. I saw the boys run 100 kilometers. I knew they had the potential to do something difficult. I knew all our morals and values aligned. But they're the ones who really, you know, supplied the boat, the kayaks, the medics, planned out the swim. Like, they're 100% the most crucial role in this whole project.
Yeah, you have the idea of the swim, but the whole project management side, it's a whole other ballgame.
And I mean, look, if you'd have left it to me, it'd have been me in a kayak, right? I'm easily the most unorganized individual.
Yeah, I don't know if the Thai police are going to let that go.
Yeah, so, no, they're phenomenal. I mean, they're going above and beyond, which they have been doing for multiple years, so it didn't surprise me how much effort was put into the whole project.
Yeah, and by the time this podcast airs, we'll have all that information. So all the links, all the description, if you're looking to donate, we'll put that down in our description on this video. We'll also be promoting it across our Instagram channels, and I'll pin it in the comments at the top as well, which makes it just easier to find.
Perfect.
Let's talk a little bit about the training. You have no clue how to swim. You said you can do 100 meters. So day one, where do you start? You're reaching out to the guy that swam around the island, or you're going to YouTube. How do you prepare for this?
So, started similar to the burpees of me telling people the idea. You know, again, are you insane? What are you're going to drown? Many things, which then made me think, okay, this is the one. From there, I've been very fortunate to have developed a decent following on Instagram. So I had a few people after I think I posted 1 or 2 stories about the swim, and I had some swim coaches that were in different countries that wrote me and said, hey, this is amazing. I've been following you for a while. Let me help you a little bit. So they gave me some techniques to work on, some drills. One coach wrote me up a week's programming of what he thought would help. I had to film myself, send it to them. But the first thing, you know, like any sport you're trying to do, is just repetition, just get comfortable in the water. So it was, you know, at the time I was working a lot. So you're getting in the pool when you can, but I just knew, okay, get in the water every day. At least, you know, I wasn't focusing on finishing in a certain time. I wasn't focusing on swimming fast. I was focusing on getting better at swimming, which it was interesting to me because I was a bad swimmer. So I actually found it quite enjoyable because I was improving something that that was pretty poor at the time, and it's it's not spectacular by any means now, but it's better than it was. Over time, training changes. Obviously, you start to get better at swimming. You start to understand. Luckily, I come from a background of sports, so I have a pretty keen understanding on what's necessary in terms of developing fitness. So I knew different energy systems had to be emphasized throughout the training. You got your longer, purely aerobic swims, which are your base. You have your more anaerobic interval-style swims, which help you become a little bit faster, more efficient. And then you have your technique days, which obviously improve efficiency and quality of the swimming. So when you get really tired, form hopefully doesn't break down as much.
At first, you're jumping in the pool. Are you starting, okay, let me do 1,000 meters, working up to 5,000? I mean, just so people understand, you're probably going to be getting close to 60,000 meters over 2 days, and you need rest, you need to sleep. So that preparation of training from day one of maybe doing 1,000 meters, where are you at right now? Because, I mean, it's probably coming up in 3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah. So, I mean, in the beginning, it was like, I remember the first day, okay, I'm going to swim 100 meters without stopping. All right, the second day, I'm going to swim 150. And I just kept going until I could make 1,000. And man, I'm telling you, there was days when I was like 600 meter mark, I was questioning, like, man, I might have bit off more than I can chew. Maybe this is really not going to happen. But after a while, you get a little more comfortable. At the moment, I'm taking a break from swimming. I have a little bit of kind of bronchitis-ish problem that I'm dealing with. But I'll be fine. But for like 3 or 4 days, 5 days, not really swimming. But also right now it's just maintenance. Like every month I had a milestone of the amount of meters I wanted to finish in a certain time frame. I knew that if you swim close to the amount in the 2 days during the week, then I'd be pretty ready. And I also knew if I swam, 2/3 of a single day in one go, then I'd put myself in a pretty good standard. But this month, it's more maintaining. You're not trying to do any more really long swims. You're letting your body kind of rest as much as you can, and you're just maintaining what you have so you can hopefully peak on that day to give your best.
What's the longest swim you've done now in preparation?
So
in one sitting, let's say.
I was in Mallorca recently, and originally I wanted to swim in the ocean, but due to a little bit of work and other factors, I went to a 25-meter pool, and I had swam until they kicked me out. And I think that in total was like 6.5 hours, and it was about 17,000 meters in one go.
And how did you feel after that? You're still feeling confident? It was comfortable? It was painful?
No, it was a point where I could definitely keep going. I stopped because they kicked me out, right? It was about 10:30 p.m. and I was the last one in the water, and I think everyone wanted to go home.
What happens when you show up at this pool? Do you inform them what you're about to do, or do you just start swimming and they come back 8 hours later and like, what the fuck is this guy doing?
They were definitely. I mean, I didn't inform anyone, right? Because I speak Spanish to a certain degree, but I didn't think it was necessary. And the pool was a pretty big pool, but yeah, they were definitely curious. A few of them were asking me why at the end. It was a little frustrating in the beginning because I had laid out all my carbohydrate drinks and protein shakes by my lane in the pool because I don't want to get out of the pool. Ideally, every kilometer I'm going to take a swig of maybe some carbohydrates or keep me fueled because you're burning a lot of calories throughout the swim. But I definitely don't want to be getting in and out of the pool because I'm just going to be using energy. But they came to me and basically said, hey, you're not allowed anything next to your lane, so you got to keep it about 10 meters away from the pool in the stands, and that was frustrating. And I think maybe we didn't have the best relationship in the beginning, me and the people looking after the pool, because I was a little, I wouldn't say aggressive is the right word, but when you're, quite tired and someone tells you can't have water next to your lane, and you're like, come on, man. They were definitely confused. At the end of the swim, they were like, what are you doing?
At which point did the confusion on their face set in? Are you talking after the second hour? They're like, what? Wait a minute, this guy's still swimming.
No, because I had been there many times as I was in Mallorca. I'd mix up swimming in the ocean and the pool, and so they've seen me swim probably 2 hours in one go. I would say probably at the 4-hour mark, they were very confused. Definitely at the 5-hour mark, because everyone had left at that point, right? And it was just me. And I remember they came up to me and said, "Hey, like, we close in 30 minutes." And I said, "Okay." And I just kept going, right? I think at that point they were like, I guess they knew I was training for something, but I don't think they had seen someone swim that often in a 25-meter pool. It's tough too. In the ocean, you feel like you're exploring. You're going somewhere, you're seeing, fish or cool things in the water, you're moving. In a pool, it's a loop. It's easy to just get super bored and unmotivated.
On the preparation side for the ocean, can you talk a little bit? How do you prepare the food? How are you going to sleep? Are there people watching you on cycles? Is there security? Is there police? Who's getting all behind this to make sure that it actually can come together?
That's completely due to Grip It, right? Grip It went above and beyond and made it all happen. But we have a big catamaran. We have another person on a speedboat, and they're basically guiding the kayakers where to go. So on the catamaran, you also have a medic. You have certain people that have food ready all the time. You have anything you may possibly need. Let's say you have a jellyfish sting. You have people ready to help you. And then you have, I want to say 6 kayakers in total. And they're going in 2-hour shifts. It might even be more. It might even be 9 kayakers. I can't really remember exactly. And so always you'll have one kayak in front of you, in front of each swimmer. And in that kayak, you have your personal items that you want as far as how you're going to fuel and hydrate. And most of the time it's, every kilometer, every 2 kilometers, you're drinking, 30, 50 grams of carbs. Basically, you're trying to stay as fueled as you can, maybe salt caps. Every, a few hours, maybe you're jumping up on the side of the speedboat real quick, downing a protein shake, getting back in the water. It's not nearly as official as when you have like the professional distance swim races where you're not allowed to touch the boat. You're not allowed to it's obviously the goal for us is just to finish it. I think people should keep in mind that before 6 months ago, none of us have really swam that much.
No, you're starting off at 100 meters. I think that's the catch to it. You haven't. I think these professional swimmers that swim across. I think they swim across the Atlantic.
Oh yeah, no.
These people have been training for 40 years.
Yeah, the comparison I would make would be when I did the burpee challenge. I knew, even if you don't do any burpees, this is such a skill that you've developed decade that you don't even really need to be that fit to pull this off. You just have to push yourself. Whereas the swim was way different because I was like, wow, I really don't have that much repetition in the water. If I show up without practice, I'm not going to make it. So I knew, this was a entirely different prep as opposed to Tom's journey. Tom's journey was like, just push yourself, just endure. You just keep going. It doesn't matter. Whereas the swim, it still comes down to enduring because I'm definitely not a great swimmer, but I've definitely had to build up the proficiency, at least enough to be able to utilize that skill set of pushing myself.
So again, we're dealing with 60 kilometers, 30 kilometers a day. How does that work? What time would you start swimming in the morning? Are you going to be doing it at night because of the heat? What time are you sleeping? We discussed when you're eating. You're kind of eating when you go. So how does that all work?
So again, it could be 25, could be 30. It really depends on how straight we can swim, right? Current takes us, I hope it doesn't take more than 30, but who knows. But as far as timing, the goal is to start when it's still dark, probably around 5 a.m. And then, there's so many unpredictable factors that could be at play, but my guess would be at least 12 hours in the water. So you're going definitely till it's dark again. You're lathering yourself with as much sunscreen as you can.
Yeah.
The only thing that I really feel could stop me is getting so sunburnt that I get incredibly sick, or even then I don't know if that would stop me, but that would make it definitely the most painful process. And so I don't even want to be able to see my skin, right? I just want to be completely white, covered in sunscreen.
Would you wear are you going to wear a rash guard or a wetsuit?
No, I won't wear a rash guard, but one thing I picked up on pretty early was if I don't really cover myself in Vaseline, especially under my arms, that I chafe a tremendous amount. I think possibly being a little bit bigger individual, my arm rubs against my back, and that got super painful in training. So, I mean, I'll probably go through an entire thing of Vaseline maybe in each day. Like when I did the 17-kilometer swim, I remember every 2 kilometers I was putting on more Vaseline.
Are you wearing goggles? You got a nose plug, earplugs as well?
Earplugs, 100%. Nose plug, no. Goggles, swim cap. I'm probably the least prepared as far as equipment. I mean, the other boys have multiple pairs of goggles and swim caps and swim bags, and they're definitely more on top of it. We showed up to do some swimming over the weekend, and I showed up with a trash bag with my stuff inside. They were laughing at me. I need to buy more swim goggles because at the end of the day, if something happens to them, I'll need a new pair. But yeah, it's a decent amount of equipment actually.
Have you run this by your family? Are they kind of used to, okay, no, here goes Noah in his next extreme sport? I mean, what is their response?
Oh, man. Yeah. You know, to be honest, this was the first time I explained to my family what I wanted to do, and they weren't immediately on my side in terms of, oh, you could smash this. This was the first time where, so my older sister, she used to swim a lot. I think she believed in me to a certain extent. My mom and dad, they know I'm insane for sure. They know, like, okay, this is something, you know, I could see you wanting to do, but I don't know if you're prepared for actually what this is going to entail. But obviously they're always supportive. But yeah, they definitely question, hey, like, you know, what is the safety aspect? And I'm also, sometimes I say things I shouldn't say in terms of like, I'll drown before I finish it. You know, and then your mom's like, no, don't do that. But it's, you go in with the mindset of, hey, I don't care how long it takes. I'm going to finish. And no, but I mean, my parents they've been great always, to be honest.
What do you think would be the next challenge? Are you even thinking about that, or are you just focused on this?
It's a good question. Yeah, I think there's certain ideas that roam around my head. I won't get into them yet because nothing is certain. A lot of my attention is on the swim, but a lot is just on the idea of helping and figuring out the best way I can do that. I think the older I get, the more I realize that plays such a role in me feeling the way I would like. I don't know. I think I'm a huge advocate of helping with mental health, helping youth. I know for a fact I would like to play a major role in helping those two areas. And I know the next challenge will be even bigger and more challenging. I just don't know exactly what it will be yet.
Is the distance further from the Don Sac Pier to Koh Samui? Or is it very similar?
I really don't know. I don't want to give you an answer because there's nothing I'm pretty confident in. But I imagine it's very far as well. Probably even further, to be honest with you.
A bit further as well. I guess I wonder if anyone's done all the mountains, hiking all the mountains through Phuket from the start to the end. Because even these mountains right here, we're up in, I guess, Talang.
Mm-hmm.
People dirt bike them all the way from here. You can end up in Chalong.
Oh, wow.
If you know where you're going. And it's actually pretty crazy up there. Oh, no, I don't think we can get in trouble for this, but there's fucking crazy people with guns up there cooking meth.
Yeah, that's...
So, I mean, there's the real challenge.
Yeah. Navigating through.
Yeah. Like,
that does sound difficult.
There's certain points I've heard of people dirt biking up there where you get shot at.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd be up for dodging bullets as I hike through the mountains.
Yeah.
But, I mean, certain things like that do interest me as far as the distance, the difficulty of hiking that far. Whatever the next challenge will be, I'll probably try and incorporate a few different modalities. I think the idea of an ultra distance was fascinating because it's very out of my element. I came from the last few years of just purely, lifting heavy things and helping people with their fitness journey. So I liked this because this was outside my wheelhouse and outside my comfort zone. the next one for sure will be incorporating multiple things as far as like a strength component and a distance component, or most of the time I base if the idea is good or not off of friends' reactions or my parents' reaction, or
maybe the burpees from the Malaysian border to the Golden Triangle. Please don't do that.
yeah, I mean there's a lot, like when I see, there's one guy I look up to, his name's Ross Edgley, and he does some pretty amazing things. I think he had a giant log. I don't know exactly how much it weighed, but he tied it to himself and he swam. He did a triathlon. It might have been even an ultra triathlon with this giant log attached to him. So he did the swim, and then he ran with it on his back, and then he biked with it on his back. And when I see things like that, I think like, oh, that's something that I feel like I could do. I don't know. I've always had this like, it's this thing in me where I don't know why, but when I'm doing something and maybe it's just ego, who knows, when I start thinking like, oh, no one else would do this. And then it drives me to like, yeah, we should do it.
I mean, being a big advocate for the youth and mental health, and really discussing about levels of anxiety, and then just burning that energy to maybe suppress the anxiety. At a certain level, do you feel that these extreme challenges you bring on, are you just escaping the root problem, or are you afraid to face it head on? As we save that for the end of the podcast.
That is a very good question. And
what are you running away from?
Oh, that's a tough one.
And to allow you to think about it, because I'm sure there's a lot of people in a similar situation. You can't be the only one on the planet where you're using the energy to suppress the anxiety. But again, at the end of the day, there could be a deeper rooted problem. We don't need to go into the details of that. But sharing your experience with mental health, what do you think that could be? Are you still like, you're going to these extreme lengths, but are you just kind of putting a Band-Aid on the root problem at the end of the day?
So I think the original passion for pushing myself definitely began with, running away from feeling anxious and kind of using that anxious energy to put towards something, I don't want to say good, but a way to cope with it. Yeah, exactly. And as I got older, I don't think it's as much now. Like, to a certain degree, do I need to go to the gym every day or do some type of physical activity to be a little more calm? Yes. Do I need to swim 50 kilometers to be calm? No. Right? And I've done different types of techniques. I went to therapy for a few years, and I'm a big believer in doing what you feel is necessary to help with the mental health. If you need medication, take medication. There's a lot of different routes you can go. I don't think doing these super extreme endeavors now is about escaping the anxiety. I think it's about me basically saying, hey, the anxiety that stemmed in the beginning that allowed me to develop this skill set of really wanting to push myself and being able to push myself has opened up doors for me to help people who were, potentially suffering the same way I was, or, even now are dealing with different issues. And I'm a big believer in the youth as well, because I remember being young and a little bit on my own and being unsure about things and not being able to deal with your emotions well. And so I don't think these days it's escaping the root cause. I think these days it's allowing me to do something, greater than myself. I think it's opened up doors for my way of giving back. I don't think in any way it's kind of escaping now as opposed to what it used to be. I think in the beginning it definitely it started like that. But no, I think now every year is a greater challenge, but does the preparation to the event allow me to deal with some anxiety? Absolutely, because it's some type of form of activity you're doing every day. I definitely know a difference when I wake up and swim or don't swim. Is it so noticeable that people are like, oh, wow, no, you're way different today? I wouldn't say so, but I definitely am a little more on edge. I don't really want to talk to as many people, things like that. But the actual swim, no. The actual swim is me saying, hey, you're able to do something that maybe not everyone can, and you're able to utilize that and really make a difference. And it's a waste to not do that.
And also using your strength to build that awareness. It's kind of your microphone as well.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in, even with the podcast, I was really unsure about doing it because I want people to see what I'm doing. When I was growing up doing all these things, it wasn't about, telling people what I'm doing. Sometimes I like to tell people because then it forces me to follow through. But most of the time, when I had written on my phone, like, I want people to feel sick while they watch me train, I wrote that because I wanted people to see what I was doing and hopefully be motivated or understand that I was willing to give everything. I wasn't the kind of person, a lot of people will tell you and that have worked with me, when I'm not, working and I have to be social, I don't talk much. And if you were to see me train or you were to be with me in that point in my life, I show up, I have headphones on, and I work until I can't. And that's what I want people to see. I don't want people to see me tell you how much I can do something. I want you to take notice of what I'm doing.
Through action.
Yeah, absolutely. It's easy to tell people that you work hard every day. It's a different story when, I think for me, effort over everything. The quote I live my life by, something my father told me once. I had one day in Costa Rica, there was a drill going on, and I kept messing up. And I remember the coach pulled me into the group, and we had an assistant coach who was Colombian, and he could speak English but not very well. And he pulled everyone in, and the Costa Rican coach just yelled at me for a couple minutes, and then the Colombian coach translated what he yelled at me in English. And there were some swear words involved, so I won't get into it too much. But basically he told me how terrible I was and, I shouldn't be there. Humiliated me in front of the group in 2 languages, and then was like, okay, continue, and sent me back out on the and of course, you're 18, 19, and you continue messing up, right? Because at that point your confidence completely dropped. And later in the day I called my father and I said, like, look, I don't know if I could do this. Maybe this just isn't for me. And I remember he told me, he said, you don't have to be the best to be respected. You just have to work the hardest. And I think about that every day. I think it carries over to everything. And, he said, go back tomorrow, way before anyone is there, take the balls, go to that exact point where you're doing the drill, and cross the ball, and do that every day. And that was the turning point for me, where I had an understanding of, and I always knew I had to work hard, but I had an understanding of, if you work harder than everyone, you don't say anything, you put your head down, that's what you can control, you put in more effort than anyone around you, you may not be the best at what you do, but people will see it and they'll respect you for it.
Yeah, and you're also setting an example for the entire team and leveling them up as well.
For sure. I mean, look, it played to my advantage. In the end, I must have done that for many, many weeks, where I was there first thing, crossing the ball, until the coach saw me one day, and, fast forward it, I ended up being the youngest American to ever debut in that first division, and it led me to go play in Spain, so it worked out to my advantage. But, people used to call me insane all the time, right? I used to have players and the physio and everyone tell me, like, oh, you train too much, you're going to hurt yourself. Like, this is a common theme in my life of, that, to be honest, my body is pretty broken at a young age. So they had some truth to it. But yeah, that was the mindset. The mindset was, look, you're better than me, he's better than me, you might outperform me, but when it comes down to it, you're not going to work as hard as I am, and I'm going to let you know that. Not by telling you, but just, and look, that got me into fights too. We would do fitness drills, and we'd finish the fitness drill, and I'd want to win every single time. And I remember the captain coming up to me and holding me by the collar and yelling at my face, telling me, why are you trying to make us look bad? Like, we have families to feed. We all finish the same time every round. And I just remember telling him, that's not how I operate. Like, every time I step on this field, I'm going to work harder than you are. And yeah, I still have the same philosophy whatever I do, the swim with everything.
As we pivot at the end of the podcast, and I just want to take one step back, talking about mental health and dealing with anxiety, and you're touching upon people may have options, whether that's burning that through energy, is it therapy, is it medication? Experimental medication that is kind of on the new frontier, especially becoming legalized shortly in Thailand and definitely the rest of the world, and dabbling with psilocybin and mushrooms and how this can help with mental health, and people are using MDMA and ketamine as well. Obviously things that are much more organic, such as psilocybin. What are your thoughts on using or trying to use this as an assistant, psilocybin versus medication? Do you have experience with that? Do you have thoughts on that, or is that something you don't want to touch?
Yeah.
In terms of
I mean,
talking about.
I got nothing to hide as long as it won't get me in trouble. But no, I'm a big believer. Look, I went through periods of my life that were extremely difficult. I mean, for a long time, I was using psilocybin. I think what it essentially does is it gives you more gratitude. And I think that on its own is such a proponent to living a happier life. I think when you're grateful for things, and the more things you're grateful for, life just starts throwing them at you. I mean, I have a whiteboard in my bedroom. And for the longest time, every time I woke up in the morning, I wrote 3 things I was grateful for on the whiteboard. And I got it from a book that I'd read a long time ago. But every day they have to be different, right? So and you end up writing really ridiculous things too, like, I'm grateful for chocolate. I'm grateful, But you look at it and you go, wow, like this is amazing. And I credit a lot of that mindset that I was able to develop from psilocybin. And I've dabbled with a little bit of everything because I'm a curious individual and I have nothing to hide. I think that's part of life. But I do think psilocybin, it does miracles in a way. It makes you reflect, and there's an example someone once told me, and I think it works really well. Not a comparison, and it's you have all the problems and they're hanging on your back, and it's if someone is like giving you a piggyback ride, and it's there, but every time you turn, you can't really see it. And psilocybin basically allows the person to hop off your back and turns you around, and head
shine
it front
the light
on.
on it.
Yeah. I used to take it all the time and go sit on my own at the beach and you reflect. And I never looked at it more recreational as like enjoying with friends. I looked at it as like, this is a chance for me to learn more about myself and understand about myself, and hopefully gain new perspectives and allow me to see and deal with problems that might arise in a much better way.
And getting involved in plant medicine, I mean, at the end of the day, whether there's a higher power or not, I mean, there's reasons this stuff is here. I mean, it's all natural, and it can be used as a medicine as well. And I think that connection and that information has probably been lost in the past couple 100 years.
For sure. Yeah, look, I think there's a bad stigma about it. Less now. Even with my parents, I've mentioned to them a few times, and in the beginning they're a little, whoa, like, everyone normally has the same thing to say that isn't super educated on the topic of, I had a friend that went insane from doing that too much. And you're like, if you knew the research, you probably didn't go insane from, look, if you're talking substances, it's easily one of the safest, right? The ratio of like fatal to just a regular dose is so great that you couldn't even reach it.
You can't.
It's like 1,000+ grams, right? To even have and also the least addictive. And there's a lot of things that are really to its advantage. Because I did all the research when I was going down that route. So
you cannot overdose on it. But anything you just won't feel comfortable. I've tried and taken too much playing around, and you feel a bit like itchy.
Yeah.
What is the word? And to be honest, I've taken too much turmeric powder once, and I almost puked and laid down. It's the same. Whatever
absolutely.
you take in life, you can die from overdosing on water.
100%.
To be honest. So it really depends, like finding the right dosage for yourself and what works for you. And all these dosages have different reasons behind them. Are you microdosing? Are you macrodosing? Are you looking for a visual? Are you looking to reflect? It really depends on the individual.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I have certain friends that really enjoy microdosing. It gives a little bit of spark to life, and maybe they see things with a little more beauty. After going down that route, I think me personally, I was more of like every so often take a little bit greater dose and really look at your life. And, if something's bothering you, it'll show you, and it'll look, this sounds super cliche, but more often than not, it gives you the same answer. And that answer is, love yourself, love those around you, and be grateful for what you have. And I know how that sounds saying it aloud, but that's the truth.
It's actually quite simple. I think what it does, like psilocybin as well, like you're saying, it just shines the light on it. Whatever you're struggling with, what was it? Jeff Bezos was saying something like, most of the problems you have, it's something you haven't done, you need to get done that you can do, and for some reason you're just not doing it. Or whatever you're struggling with, you don't even need psilocybin. You know what that problem is. It could be something so simple like, I need to take the car in to do an oil change. But if you hold that off for 3 weeks, that anxiety will build up. Why haven't I done that? It's so simple.
100%.
And that can lead to problems. It snowballs and builds. On your thoughts on being grateful to the universe, whether you believe in a higher power or not, I think it's actually something, it's beyond our understanding. But the way I look at it is, if you're over here for dinner and I bring you food, and you're here for dinner every single night and you expect the food and you never say thank you at dinner, I might not bring you food the next time.
Oh, 100%.
So it's very simple. When you reach out to the universe and say, hey, this is my goal, these are my focus, and you get those things and you don't say thank you after, what do you expect to come back? And whoever you're saying thank you to, I don't think our little monkey minds are wise enough or developed enough to even understand it. But it's just the act of you should do that anyways, to be grateful, which also humbles yourself.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's the base. It's the base of everything, right? I think if your life's not going the way you would like, I genuinely believe if you try and apply a little more gratitude, no matter how bleak the situation seems, you'd be surprised the outlook that you have on life that slowly begins to change. Again, I'll say it multiple times. You're grateful for things, and life throws you more things to be grateful for. I think it's as simple as that. Have
you tried practicing meditation as well, like in the mornings, to maybe calm the monkey mind and be able to step outside the body and even simple things, just planning the day and putting things in place?
Yeah, I think so. Meditating a little bit. For me, the swim has become very meditative, and I think that's what the run used to be and what the gym was. It's a way when it's a time when I don't think about anything, when I let my brain just wander. I mean, often when I am in that meditative state, it wanders to the same things anyways. But yeah, I think meditating can be phenomenal. I think having someone to speak to, I would put it up there with anything. I think this is the biggest thing a lot of people are lacking.
Yeah, it's the ability to focus on a singularity. Like I say, for me, golf is meditative.
Absolutely.
Because you have so many things, whether it's personal, business, whatever is going on in your life, there's certain things you're doing. Let's say, again, swimming from Koh Phi Phi to Phuket, other people doing jiu-jitsu. It could be heavy weightlifting. Things where, like, if I fuck up here, something seriously bad could happen. When you get something that has that singular focus point, it doesn't allow anything else to come in. And I find that's very meditative. For me, like after I'll go golf every day at 3, because when you're golfing, you're so dialed in on the shot and the next shot that the idea of I haven't done something for my business can't even come into your mind. It's just, you're so focused. And that could be applied to whatever you're actually doing, whether it's running, whether it's weightlifting, whether it's training and whatnot.
Oh, look, 100%. The first thing that I ask people, whether it's friends or sometimes I have, people I don't know writing me on Instagram or, various people, and they're explaining to me, because I've been open a little bit about the anxiety in the past, and they might say, I'm dealing with this or this, and the first thing I ask is, are you exercising, or do you have an activity that you enjoy? It doesn't have to be in the gym, but because I think that alone, a lot of science, and a lot of current literature points that way anyways, of how much it actually helps you. And I think because of that exact point, you're just focusing on the present, and you're focusing on what you're doing in that moment, and it doesn't give, these external problems a chance to become internal, at least for that current hour. I wouldn't be anywhere close to the person I am today without having that ability to utilize exercise in any format. And it doesn't have to be exercise. It depends on the individual. Some people, they paint. Some people, they like making films. Some people, they play chess. Like, it can be anything. But it's that moment when it's just you're focusing on the task at hand. It's something you enjoy doing. And it gives the brain a chance to relax from all its stressors that normally are occurring.
Yeah, because all the information's coming in. I have to do this. I have to do that.
For sure. And are you eating right? Are you exercising? Do you have an activity that you enjoy? These are the first things that I think. You're getting enough sunlight. But I'm the biggest advocate of exercise, and that's probably why I do what I do now in terms of helping others on their fitness journey, because first and foremost, I think that's how you have the clearest mind and are able to navigate the best within your path and your lifestyle, is with that, clear mind.
Yeah, I saw Conor McGregor talking about it years ago before he kind of blew off the rails. But he said it's just the little wins in the day. I will go to the gym at this time, did you? I will not eat this, did you? I will not drink that. I will not go here. I will go to bed at this time. These are 5 simple things in the day. If you hit all of them, they're all wins.
Oh, absolutely.
It's compounding interest. And Einstein said this, I don't know if the exact quote, but it's to paraphrase, he said, compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. Meaning every day, get up at this time, go to the gym there, eat clean, whatever those little wins are in that day. If you did that every single day for the entire year, this compounds. But when you start losing here and there, this can lead to those negative feelings.
1,000%. I couldn't agree with that more. I think the biggest savior to yourself in terms of dealing with the challenges life throws at you is building confidence. And I think the fastest and most crucial way to build confidence, this is not my quote, but it's something I truly believe in, is keeping those small promises you make to yourself, which is essentially what you're saying. And I think when you tell yourself, I'm going to wake up at 6 a.m. tomorrow, and you do it, that's one promise kept. When you tell yourself, I'm going to eat this type of food, and you do it, that's one promise kept. I'm going to speak to this person about this. And the more promises you start keeping to yourself, it builds this internal confidence, and it builds this ability to reflect all these tough situations that might occur because you truly believe in yourself. And that's an internal thing, right? It's not external. It's not me going, hey, I'm better than you because I can hit a 400 yard. Yeah. It's me looking at you and saying, hey, no matter what you say to me, I really understand who I am and I believe in myself, and it's not really going to bother me.
And it's a discipline thing. Which
absolutely.
I think it's to do 5 little check marks in a day actually is challenging.
100%.
Like if I'm golfing today, it's like, okay, when I cross the road, don't grab a beer from the lady. I've looked, I'm in the future, I'm not winning that one today.
Yeah, no.
But I'll have one, and that's okay. I mean, I'm golfing. What am I going to carry 10 beers? No.
Look, 1,000%. And I think it's a balance, right? That's one of the greatest joys I have about working in the fitness industry and coaching people is I've been on the extreme side of things where it's like, 6+ hours of training every day. Your lifestyle is so built for that. Your nutrition, you're seeing physios. And I barely drank alcohol until I was in my 20s. I could probably less than 3 times a year. I never partied. I had a ex-girlfriend that would party every week. I never went out, nothing. Compared to now where I'm much more lenient and I really try and enjoy my life. And I needed both those extremes to find balance. And I have clients, and you're going to make mistakes, right? And I'm not talking purely in fitness, but that's also part of it. And you have to be okay with that. And you can't be too hard on yourself, and you need that balance. Hey, yeah, okay, I did this check mark. Did I have the beer? Yeah, but you know what? I really wanted the beer.
Yeah, you can't be perfect. Perfect is not perfect.
Look, and I talk to clients all the time. They're telling me, hey, I really don't want to track my food. It's actually making my life harder. Okay, we're not going to track it. We'll find another way. It's like you're figuring out kind of what works. I'm a huge believer in balance, and you set up 5 promises for the day. Okay, I kept 3 of them. 2 of them I didn't keep. Were they really that important to me? Obviously not if you didn't keep them. Did it help me feel better at the end of the day? Maybe. You reflect. And you keep moving forward. When the day's done, you keep going. You start looking too much on yesterday, it's going to, turn into a little bit of depression.
Yeah, I try to just look at the end of the day and just say, like, are you happy with today? Are you happy with what you did today? Do you deserve a pat on the back? And if the answer is yes, then I go to bed happy. If the answer is no, I'm like, okay, what did you not do today that you can improve on tomorrow? And then I don't hold anything. Okay, well, today you didn't wake up and go run the dam. Okay, how do you fix it? Just wake up tomorrow and go run the dam. Boom, problem solved.
For sure. I think you touched on happiness, and at the end of the day, reflecting on, did it move towards that ultimate goal of being happy? I think I don't know if there's a better way to look at it than that. I think happiness...
Well, not just proud. Are you proud?
For sure.
Are you proud of your day? Because sometimes you'll fuck up on 4 things. Like you eat the burger, you have the beer, you woke up late, you didn't go to the gym. I'm sorry, at the end of the day, are you proud of your day? The answer, you have to be honest with yourself. Be like, no, probably not. I had a good day, but am I proud? No. And you know how to fix that tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay, let me do this, and this.
No, absolutely. But being proud is probably a better way to look at it. But I think it all kind of flows into this realm of, being content or being happy with what you're doing. And I also think that's the easiest way to help those around you. Like that was a huge conclusion for me, as I got older, was doing these, events, and that is a way of helping, but probably the greatest way I could help people is just discovering what makes me feel better and makes me happy. When I'm happy, the people I'm around are probably naturally going to be happier. It radiates,
passion and purpose.
For sure. You want to help someone, and also you lead by example. Like when that person sees you being confident, leading a lifestyle that they possibly aspire to lead, the way you treat others, the way you treat yourself, they naturally want to do that. I always go back to this kind of like picture in my head of this happiness barometer, and it's like, well, if mine's depleted, it's very hard to help other people. And when I reach that 100%, it starts to overflow, and that overflow kind of carries on to other people, and it helps them reach theirs. And until I can kind of get mine full tilt, it's hard for me to really help the way I would like.
Well, I think on yourself, you set the bar so high that, like, if I'm watching your Instagram, I'll see something. What the fuck is he doing there? Holy shit. The bar is so high that you're like, well, I should at least go walk. I mean, if he's doing that, I got to go do something. So, but that's much better than, like, you give that motivation, because the bar is just so ridiculous that you're like, okay, well, I should be able to at least do that if he's doing that. Like, come on.
Yeah. It's interesting. I never really thought about it like that. And the social media is actually a really, really tricky thing for me, because I don't really like the idea of social media for the most part. I think there's so many negative aspects. Well, there's some positives as well, but I never really wanted to help, but I didn't really want to be on the camera. That's why you don't see me talking much too on the social media, just doing things. But when I realized it was helping people and inspiring a little bit, I enjoyed that. I never really tried to keep setting the bar high. I've had people ask me many times, what's the reasoning behind a lot of the stuff you do on social media? And it's, to be honest with you, in the most transparent answer possible, I imagine myself being, 15, 16, 17, and I think, what would I enjoy seeing? What would inspire me at that time? And that's a lot of what leads to the social media. I mean, the social media, to be honest with you too, it only really grew because it was a way of helping a past partner I had that didn't really have work at the time, and I gave her the option to film, and that could be her work. And that's a lot of the reason why it grew to where it is, because if you notice now, I barely post. Right?
You're bigger, mostly like TikTok's probably, I think, your biggest.
Yeah, I mean, she must have filmed 98% of those videos.
Yeah,
right?
It's all the consistency, and it does follow your philosophy as well. Like you said before, it's like, I don't need to talk. I'm just going to show anyways.
Yeah.
It's that effort.
Yeah, it's 100%. As I get older, I feel like maybe you should talk a little bit, because you've experienced a decent amount for the age you are, and maybe you can help some people along their journey. But yeah, more than anything, I think action will always speak the loudest. People who know me well, and they'll all tell you the same, Coach Noah and regular Noah are extremely different. My personal self, I'm very introverted. I don't talk much. I go and I just do what needs to be done. The way I interact with people, I'm quite quiet. I listen. You know, Coach Noah, loud, confident, affirmative. I know kind of what needs to be done to get people to kind of to listen to me. But yeah, those people are pretty different.
When you're being that extrovert, by the time you get back in, or is your battery so drained you need that?
Yeah, that's been a really tough transition for me as I got older, because what would often happen is, you know, let's say I'm helping out with the group with gymnastics or weightlifting, and they know me as a certain person, and they see me on the street and Rawai, hey, no, how's it going? And they quickly notice a very different version of me, you know, and it's tough. In the beginning, it's tough because I don't want people to feel like I don't want to be around them, and it's never the case. It's more of I'm just a pretty, you know, introverted, slightly anxious individual, and it's not that I don't want to talk to you. I just, you know, the real me is a lot less talkative, and yeah, it's perfectly fine. And I've been super fortunate enough to make great friends here who all have that understanding. You know, they know, hey, if they see me on the road and I'm not super talkative, or I don't run up and say hi, it's not because I don't want to see them. It's because I'm probably pretty drained from seeing people a lot, and I just don't feel comfortable to talk so much at that time.
Yeah, you have very extreme personalities in this area of Rawai and Chalong, especially with coaches, like people that are extremely extroverted. They're always in the groups. They're always running around to the others that are, you know, you're going out, you're doing your training, you're going home.
Absolutely. If you were to speak to any of these coaches and, you know, ask them about me, I don't think I've ever been to an event with any of them. And not because I don't admire them or like them. It's just, if you were to tell me, hey, Noah, there's a party going on Friday and we're all going, and my reaction is like, as much as I love all you guys, that sounds very stressful.
Well, maybe that's your next challenge.
And I've already started to work on it, but absolutely.
There you go. 52 parties week after week. Good luck on that one. I don't know if you can defeat that challenge. Okay. We probably talked an hour and a half. That's how fast this goes.
Awesome.
Just before we wrap it up again, we're going to put all the links in the description and pin it in the comments. So if people are looking to donate, they can reach out. It's going to be on the website. Is there any other information about that we could share, just so when people are prepared to reach out? Are you guys going to be selling merch? I mean, obviously the whole mechanism behind the donation, that's not finalized yet. So, but that will be probably pretty clear with the link when that does come out. But anything else you want to share to the audience on a final message? You can stare into the big lens. You get to, don't worry, no one's here, so it's just the camera.
In terms of the swim, people looking to donate, you can donate in any way possible, really. You know, I didn't touch on this enough, but all the donations are going towards Grip It creating a swim program for Thai youths. Drowning is the second greatest cause in people under 15 next to motorbike and car accidents. So we're really trying to put all that money towards making, you know, potentially a huge difference in teaching kids how to swim. And I think that's, you know, phenomenal. As far as donating towards that, you can donate some money per kilometer that we swim. So I've had people write me saying, I want to donate 100 baht per kilometer, up to, I had some people 1,000 baht per kilometer. And that can all go through the website that will be up shortly. But yeah, I think this is something I'm excited about, and I hope you guys appreciate, you know, what we're doing and potentially want to take part in some form. So thank you so much for having me on the podcast, and you know, I'm grateful to be here and grateful to be part of this swim and to bigger and better things going forwards in terms of making a difference.
Perfect. You got your grateful checklist done already today. We'll put all Noah's social media contact information as well. So if you want to reach out, anything again related to this charity coaching and whatnot, and even just general questions, I'm sure he's fine with as well.
Absolutely.
That's going to wrap up another episode of the Fruiting Body Podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave comments, and we're out.